If you're buying your next home in Duluth, Georgia, before you close, here are some questions you need to ask to protect your investment and avoid costly surprises. So today I'm here with Rob Young of Concierge Insurance. We're just going to be talking about everything you need to go over before you make your next home purchase to avoid any issues or any pitfalls and to keep you fully prepared. Rob, we have a pretty good list here of questions that were submitted by homeowners here in Duluth. We're going to break them down by section. But first off, let's start by just asking, how should someone evaluate insurance costs when they're comparing potential homes in Duluth?
Yeah, that's a great question. One of the best ways to evaluate insurance costs is to talk to a broker, because a broker can actually go through several different companies and tell you kind of what way the market looks. Another reason why you want to go through a broker is one of the parts of insurance, particularly on homes, that people don't understand, and it's quite honestly, it's very understandable that you wouldn't understand, is I just bought my house for $600,000 and I called the insurance agent and he tells me I got to insure it for $900,000. And it's a difficult thing to understand, but insurance companies look at a thing called replacement cost on a house. So you could have a house that you're paying $600,000 for, but if you lost it in a hurricane or in a tornado or fire, it would cost $900,000 to rebuild it, because rebuilding a house costs a whole lot more than actually just buying it off the street. Yeah, so that's a big thing. And by going through a broker, you kind of get some confidence in that, because different companies will say what it's worth, and you'll get an idea of what each company has to say about that. I would be wary of anybody who starts just telling you that, hey, we can insure your house for exactly what you wanted it insured for, because they may not be doing a really good job.
Okay, so our next question here is, what questions should I ask my insurance agent before I make an offer on a home?
I think one of the biggest things with that is during the inspection process. I'll tell you right now, a huge thing is how old's the roof, because most companies are really looking at that pretty extensively. They've replaced a lot of roofs over the last few years. When I first started in the business years ago, I mean, we may have had, if you came to me and wanted a homeowner's insurance policy, every once in a while we'd run somebody that had a roof claim. Now I would say probably 20-30% of the people that we write had had a roof claim in the last 5 years, just changing weather patterns and things like that. Yeah. So the companies are really looking at that pretty extensively. So that's a big thing, is you want to talk with the seller and make sure, how long has it been since that roof's been replaced? You maybe want to get them to replace that, or look at that as a negotiation tactic. Other things though are just even like, when's the electrical system been done over? If you're buying an older home, HVAC, when has that been done? Things like that will drive the insurance price.
Okay, awesome. So now I have someone asking, how do I ensure adequate dwelling coverage for a more expensive home?
Yeah, it gets back to the replacement cost on the house itself. You want to make sure that number's right. We're about a year out from Hurricane Helene coming through Georgia. I always tell people all the time, like, if that storm had come about 100 miles west, or the original track that it was supposed to go through, it would have come right through the city of Atlanta, and we would have been dealing with all the things that the people in North Carolina and even over in Augusta are dealing with. And what those people are dealing with is houses that were underinsured. These houses, they probably called an agent. Agent said, oh, your house is worth $600,000. We'll insure it for $600,000. But the replacement cost in the house was $900,000. And so now they're having to fight with, well, we're going to pay you $600, I guess we'll build a little bit smaller house. So you want to make sure that replacement cost number is accurate.
Okay. So, yeah. All right. So our next question here says, what's the difference between insuring my current home and a new purchase? Does that make sense? That kind of sounded funky to me as I said it.
The difference between insuring. I mean, the difference between insuring two homes, it can be anything. A lot of people, they'll have a house and they'll think, okay, well, I got a house that's worth $600,000. I'm going to buy another house that's worth $600,000. Price ought to be the same, right? Right. But it could be, if you're buying a newer home, it could be the price is less. If you're buying an older home, it could be more. Yeah, simply because of the factors that also where you live. There's factors in different zip codes, cost different amounts, right, based on claims that had happened there as well. Also, one thing to look out for, you kind of asked this question earlier about what to look out for, what you should ask when buying a home before you get it insured. One thing is what prior claims has it had, because that's a big thing. Some insurance companies now are not, they're looking at you, but they're also looking at the house and saying, well, this house has had 3 or 4 claims. So they'll look at that too as a rating factor. So you want to ask that question as well as, has this house had claims before?
Okay. All right. So now we're going to take a minute and step into evaluating risks before you actually get into the home, similar to what we talked about, but a little more specific on weather, damage, that type of thing. So the first question we have here is, how should I factor flood risk into my home selection?
It's going to be an extra cost. Okay. So one thing you definitely want to do is get some flood insurance quotes. If it turns out the policy is in a floodplain, you definitely want to do that. Your mortgage company will tell you that if it is. But even if let's just say you don't have a mortgage, you want to check that out and see. It's pretty easy to do now. You can talk to an insurance agent. They can tell you if it's in a floodplain or not.
Okay.
But even if it's not in a floodplain, if that's something you're concerned about, then even if you're not in a floodplain, you may need to be concerned about that. I owned a house one time that was near a creek. It wasn't in a floodplain, but there was always a chance it could come up. So you definitely want to get a rate on that where you're doing comparisons between maybe a house that's in that situation and a house that's not.
Okay. Are there any property characteristics that you would suggest avoiding when you're looking for homes?
I would say when you're looking at a house that's got, let's say it's not a standard looking house, it's kind of irregular shaped or got some things that are different on it. Well, you just have to decide if you want to put up with that or not. Because a lot of insurance companies will look at that and go, wow, it's going to be expensive to replace this house because it's kind of unique. So you look at that. You want to, pools are not bad, but you want to make sure there's a good fence around those. But the house itself too, and I think most people when they sell their house, they usually spruce it up and make it look good. Yeah. But you also want to, again, a good inspector will find stuff that maybe you can't see. Because what you don't want to do is you go buy this house, you go to insure it, and then the insurance company comes out, does an inspection, goes, oh, we found this, or we found that, or, so you want to make sure that's been done pretty thoroughly before you buy it.
Okay. So now we have someone asking, how do I assess the insurance implications of different neighborhoods in Duluth?
Well, I think that gets into real estate, kind of real estate values. Some areas appreciate more than others do. And again, when we talk about cost estimator, you could got this great deal, you're paying, $250,000 for this house, but if that house was over in Alpharetta, it might be worth $800,000. So when you go to get insurance, it's probably going to be a little bit more than what you have it insured for. But I will say also, you have to look at crime areas because that plays into homeowners insurance as well. Absolutely. You're buying in a zip code where there's, higher levels of crime, you're going to pay a little bit more for your homeowner's insurance.
Okay. This is kind of piggybacking off what we talked about in the last section, but are there any questions you would recommend asking specifically about a property's insurance history?
Yeah, the big thing I would probably ask is claims history. Okay. That'd be one thing. But again, getting back into, because if claims history, just to reiterate what we said earlier, claims history, if the house has claims on it, there's a possibility that the insurance company is going to count that against you, even though you weren't the homeowner. Yep. Because they're worried about things like water, was it repaired properly, that kind of thing. But also, maintenance, make sure you're not buying a problem.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you also get discounts if things have been upgraded. Let's say it's a 50-year-old house, but 10 years ago they went through and did ripped out everything and replaced all the electrical and all the plumbing, and that can get you some pretty good discounts too. But if it hasn't been done, you'll probably pay a little bit more for it.
Okay. So our last question in this section says, how does the age and condition of a potential home purchase affect my insurance options?
Yeah, I will say this, the older the home, the less your options. They're a little bit more stringent. A lot of companies are. That doesn't mean you can't get insurance on an older home. You can. We have tons of older homes that are insured. But the newer the home, probably the more options you're going to have. The older the home, the less. But again, if the house has been renovated and somebody's taking care of it, then that gives you more options as well. Just understand the old fixer-upper that you're buying. Yep. That could really affect your insurance rates.
Okay.
But likewise too, once you fix it up, it could bring them down.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so now our next section is going to be focused on cost management and shopping strategies. And so the first question we got here says, how can I shop for insurance before I ever close on the next home?
Oh, you can do that anytime you want to. But I'm a big believer. I used to be a captive agent years ago, became a broker because we had multiple options, multiple choices. You didn't have to call 15 different people. So I would definitely recommend you talk to a broker because they can look at a bunch of different companies and find the right homeowner's insurance for you.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations or strategies when it comes to timing your insurance when you sell one home and buy another?
Yeah, that's it's not as important as maybe it was in the past because typically most people pay their homeowner's insurance through an escrow account, and most mortgage companies are pretty patient about that. So if you decide you want to sell a house, let's say you've paid already, now you're buying the new house, most insurance companies will be okay with sort of spotting it, not having you don't have to pay anything right away, give you some time to cancel the other policy, cancel the other insurance, get that money back. So you've got time to pay it. Although most of the time when you close at closing, you're paying a closing cost and paying that anyway. So.
Okay. When someone is about to buy a new house, do you see it being more beneficial typically for them to keep their same insurance company or shop for a new one?
I would say most of the time it's a good idea. I think anytime you have a life change, it's probably a good idea to take a look around and see what else is out there.
Okay.
But I say that, but then again, a lot of times you have a bundled rate, and if you like your auto insurance rate, or if you've made a recent change, it may not be the best idea to go with another carrier at that point because you probably already looked at the market and had a good rate. But yeah, again, if you're with a broker, they're going to do that for you anyway.
Okay.
They're going to look through that and say, okay, we'll see, if this company better, is the one you're with better, or if we look at somebody else.
Okay. Yeah, perfect. How can someone watching this video maximize all the discounts they can get on their next home policy?
If you have an alarm system, that helps. A big thing a lot of the companies are looking for now is water sensors.
Okay.
Because water, whether you know it or not, water is the biggest loss on any homeowner's policy. A lot of people think tornadoes or wind or, we hear about those kinds of things, but really it's water. Water can total a house.
Okay. Yeah.
So water sensors are really big. Yeah, those are basically the main things.
Okay. Our last question here says, what's the impact of bundling policies when I move to a new home?
If you can bundle, it's probably best to do that because you get pretty significant savings if you can put them all together. I would say a few years ago, we used to bundle just about everything. In the recent market, that's kind of changed a little bit because it's been kind of harder to put things with different companies. So we've had to rearrange a little bit. But this, again, that's why I say talking to a broker is better because if you talk to a captive agent, that's pretty much all they could do is bundle. Whereas a broker can say, oh yeah, in this case, bundling was great. Or no, actually, we're better off putting you with company A with the home and company B with the auto.
Sure. Yeah. So our final question, or our final section here rather, is basically all about claims history and managing your policy. First question here says, how does my current claims history on my prior home affect insurance for my next home?
Yeah, it can affect it, definitely. If you've had multiple claims, we try to tell anybody that's when it comes to homeowners insurance, try to educate them on that. Homeowners insurance, they don't necessarily care so much about the size of the claim. So believe it or not, a $100,000 claim can count the same as a $2,000 claim. So it's frequency of claims is what they're concerned about. So we encourage high deductibles, at least a $2,500 deductible. Don't claim the small stuff, claim the big stuff. And that way you can keep that cost down. You really, in about a 5-year period, you don't want to have more than 1 or 2 claims because if a dude, then it can really impact your rate.
Okay, so our next question says, how do I handle the transition of coverage from my old home to my new home?
Probably any agent out there could really help you with that. A good agent should be able to guide you through that, how to handle it. But typically what we do, we'll say, hey, let's make sure you got your new home in place first before we ever cancel your old home. And that is a little tricky sometimes because maybe you're holding on your old home for a few weeks or something, and the new home, maybe you got somebody coming in to rent. And so really talking to an agent about all that is very important. Because there could be situations where if you're renting your house out, if you bought a new home, this happens a lot. You bought a new home, the people sold it a little quicker than they thought, now they want to rent it back to you. There's implications for that. So you got to be sure you've talked to somebody that can walk you through that and make sure that that's all covered properly as well.
Absolutely.